Today, we have the privilege of speaking with an athlete whose career embodies longevity, excellence, and resilience. A 5-time Olympian, 2-time NCAA champion, and Stanford Hall of Famer, who has made an indelible mark on track and field. Jackie Edwards' journey began at Stanford University, where she earned a full athletic scholarship and quickly established herself as one of the best in the sport. In 1992, she became NCAA champion in the long jump and All-American in the triple jump, while also excelling as a sprinter in the 100 meter, 200 meter, 4x100, and 4x400 relays. Her dominance on the track was undeniable. She held Stanford's outdoor records in both the long jump and triple jump for 3 decades, a testament to her lasting impact on the sport. These achievements earned her induction to the Stanford Hall of Fame in 2008, but Jackie didn't stop there. She went on to represent the Bahamas in 5 consecutive Olympic Games from 1992 to 2008, which is an extraordinary accomplishment in track and field. Along the way, she also secured a silver medal at the 1998 Commonwealth Games, bronze medals at the 1995 and 2003 Pan American Games, further cementing her place among the greatest Bahamian athletes of all time. Beyond the medals and records, Jackie has dedicated herself to elevating the mental side of athletic performance. She earned a master's degree in sports psychology and has since focused on mentoring, performance coaching, and speaking on the psychological aspects of elite competition. Her work helps athletes not only excel in competition, but also navigate the transition beyond sport. And on a personal note, I'm honored to call Jackie a friend. Though we weren't teammates, we met at Stanford while she was still competing and training there, and I've always admired her drive, wisdom, and dedication to the sport. Today, we're going to dive into Jackie's journey from growing up in the Bahamas to competing on the world's biggest stages, the mental resilience required to sustain a 2-decade-long career, the challenges of transitioning from athlete to entrepreneur, and what mental health professionals should consider when working with international student athletes. So let's get into it. And Jackie Edwards, welcome to the Mindscape Report with Dr. Wilsa.
Thank you. Thank you, Wilsa. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So I want to start this one a little bit differently today because I think it's so relevant. I want to talk about how we met. And I want to say this was in 1999. And I recall very vividly being on the track, had just finished practice, and my roommate and friend was waiting for me. She had her things packed. We were headed out for spring break. And I went to tell my coach that I was headed out, and it was a new coach that had come that year. And he said, "No, you're not." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "You can't go anywhere. You have training to do. You know, we have big meets coming up after this." And I was upset and in shock and couldn't believe he was actually forbidding me. And you were there. And I can't remember if I told you, you heard, but you came over to explain that you had a similar experience. And it was a teaching moment for me in terms of what you have to do when you have certain goals in mind and how you can't do things like everybody else. But I was wondering if you wanted to share your half of that story.
So yeah, I remember that occasion well. Back when I was a freshman at Stanford, so this would have been all the way back 88, 89. I remember my friends, roommates were planning this trip to Hawaii for spring break, and I had never been to Hawaii. So I thought, awesome, I get to travel with them, booked the ticket, paid for the ticket. Everybody was getting ready to go. And I think about a week before I was like, oh, I should let my coach know that I'm going to Hawaii for spring break. And same like your coach, he said, no, you're not. And I thought, wait, I already paid for the ticket. It's non-refundable because I got the cheapest fare. And he was like, good for you. You'll not be going anywhere. No one that's on scholarship or no serious athlete goes away for spring break because that's in the middle of the track season when you're trying to gear up for great performances. And like you, my face sort of fell to the ground in disbelief because he was so serious. And he turned around and walked away. And I'm like, I
Oh
guess
gosh,
the conversation's over.
that
So
was that.
I just remember going to tell my friends, like, I can't go with you. I stayed on campus with whoever else were the few people that stayed on campus during spring break. But it, like you said, it was a great teaching moment that in order to excel, it's something I say to my boys now all the time. I say, you want to be good or you want to be great? If you want to
Mhm.
be good, go ahead and do what all the people that are good do, which is average discipline, average work ethic, average commitment. Go ahead, enjoy yourself. But if you want to be great, you have to be willing to do things that other people are not prepared to do. And this was a prime example.
Yes, absolutely. The difference between good and great takes sacrifice,
Yeah.
and the type of sacrifice that a lot of people don't want to make.
And don't make. They talk about it.
Absolutely.
A lot of people
Right.
talk about a lot of things that they will do and plan to do and want to do. It's very different to actually getting out there and consistently putting that time and effort and work in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Do you feel like there's a difference in any aspect of that culture or training from the US collegiate system to what you were used to growing up in the Bahamas?
Well, so both of my parents are Jamaican. I was born in Jamaica. And if you know a Jamaican, if you know their parents, Jamaican, specifically Jamaican culture is heavily rooted in the importance of education, work ethic, and respect. Those are the three things like that immediately come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe I sort of had that DNA. And if I didn't have it, my parents put it in me that um, these are the things that are just baseline. These are
Yeah.
not, you don't get a gold star for having these three things. And so my foundation was built on those three things. And I feel like everything that I accomplished stemmed from the
From that.
constant voices that I would hear in my mind when I was away from my parents and I left home because I went to college at 17, so I was pretty young.
I'm curious. First, tell me, how old were you when you did end up going to the Bahamas?
I was 7 years old.
7.
Yeah.
Is there anything in your experience that you see even differently in the experience in those years you had growing up there after age 7 from what was being taught at home? Is there any cultural difference that you felt like with respect to this? There's a lot of
Like
cultural differences.
in regards to the Bahamas and Jamaica,
Hmm.
they're similar in many ways. The Bahamas has a little more cultural influence because of how close it is to the United States, and
Hmm.
probably even more so now. But when I was growing up there,
Hmm.
the dynamic and the mentality was very similar. Like athletics was seen as a path to education.
Mm.
I did not set out to be some star athlete or anything like that. It was just we knew people that had gone on to get scholarships to go to school. And my father went to Princeton, actually, undergrad,
Mhm.
master's degree.
Wow.
And there are no athletic scholarships for
Mhm.
Ivy League
Ivies.
schools. So we specifically were not considering them because you couldn't get a scholarship. But there were so many other opportunities that could be had to gain a scholarship. And when Stanford came along, it was almost like the perfect combination of athletics and academics.
Mhm.
And so ingrained in the culture in the Bahamas as well, heavily ingrained is the opportunity that a sport presents for people to get a higher education and not have to come out of pocket. So I think in those respects it's very similar. The things that are different are not rooted in anything that is significant in terms of like personality. It's like
Yeah.
food and clothing and those type
Yeah.
of things. But in terms of the impact mentally and the mentality, sports
Mhm.
is just as important, sports in terms of the opportunity and the visibility, because in the Caribbean, in Jamaica and in the Bahamas, there's not a lot of diluted uh, interest in other sports. A lot of the
Mhm.
best US athletes do not run track because they have football, baseball, hockey, all these other things. And in Jamaica and the Bahamas, track is king.
Yeah.
See all these people doing all these amazing things and going on the world stage and going away to college. You see that every day. And so it's tangible and it's something that really heavily influences the mindset of the culture.
Yeah. You know, it makes me think of a conversation we had before, where we talked about when that shift happened for you to want more from your sport, from the sport of track and field.
Mhm.
So it makes me wonder, do you think that the initial upbringing and cultural influence, seeing it as a vehicle for getting to school and having that paid for to get your education, how did that impact how you started off looking at track and field, and what made it switch to have your sight set on achieving things even greater than that afterwards?
So back when I was going off to college, and everything that led up to that, it was a singular focus as a means for education. I didn't, at that time, doing track as a profession was not a thing. People did not talk about that, even though the Olympics, I had watched 84 Olympics, and then in 88, when I was going off to college, was the second one. I didn't really get to see that one so much because I was getting settled in at college.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Doing it beyond college was not, unless you were going to be an Olympian, which I had not really sunk my teeth into at that point, even though I missed the 88 games as a 16, 17-year-old by, I think, like 3 or 4 inches.
Wow.
But I wasn't trying to accomplish this goal.
Mm-hmm.
But Carl Lewis, if many of your viewers may or may not know who he is, he came along and
Uh-huh.
insisted that athletes should be paid as professional athletes if you want to see them perform on the regular track and field circuit. And
Mm.
that ushering in of professionalism in track and field sort of happened between 88 and 92, right? It was already going on, but he really pushed that whole movement forward, and you needed someone with his stature
Clout. Yes.
out to require that for that movement to take place. So while I was in college, I again was not thinking of it. And on top of that, my first 2 years at Stanford, no one would have ever thought I could be a professional because those first 2 years were quite horrible in terms of performance. So I wasn't thinking that way. Plus, in my household, my brother's 2 years older. He was supposed to be a doctor. I was supposed to be a lawyer. End of
Mm.
story. So that was really what I thought I was going to do.
Okay.
And then junior year came along, and I finally had this huge improvement because I sort of got myself together. And I ended up going to world championships outdoors that year as a 19-year-old and making the finals. I was the youngest in the finals. I came 10th. I came second at NCs. This was my first time going to NCs as a junior. I had not qualified freshman and sophomore year.
Mm-hmm.
And then senior year, went on to the first time I went to NCAA championships indoor was my senior year. I had never qualified before that. And the first time I went, I won,
Wow.
which sort of blew my whole mind. And then I won outdoors. When I won the second NCAA championships, a couple agents came up to me and said, talk to me about getting an agent and,
Mm.
hey, doing this professionally. And I was shocked. I didn't even know that was a thing. But
Mm-hmm.
that was where the thought process came from. And I remember sort of weighing the decision of, I'm supposed to be going to law school. I'm not sure how that's going to work with this whole track thing because I had already at that point qualified for the Olympics in
Mm-hmm.
92. And I thought for sure, okay, I'll go to the Olympics. That'll be great, but I don't know about this other stuff. Plus, the conversation I had with my parents, especially my dad, when
That's what I was thinking about. What did they have to say about that?
that was not a good conversation. My father, the Princeton grad and doctor of divinity, was not
Uh-huh.
trying to hear
I'm trying to hear
a woman, female, his daughter, doing what? Like, when you
it.
go to law school, though.
Yes.
So it really was with an understanding that I would be able to sustain myself without having my hand out to my
Mm-hmm.
parents,
Mm-hmm.
that I was allowed as a 21-year-old see if I could do it professionally.
Yeah. I mean, that completely resonates culturally speaking, and the whole idea of having to run this by them first before you go on that.
Yeah.
I think, a lot of times because education is so big culturally, it's like, okay, you can do this in college. It's paying for it. Perfect.
Hmm.
But now you get that out your system. And now you go on and do what you're supposed to do. And I
Yeah.
know in the years that I was training before going to med school, that was definitely not uh, what my dad had in mind. So
Right.
I can imagine that conversation.
Yeah. I
Um,
even went to law school for a year. And a year after, I went to Temple University Law School, applied, got in. I was like, okay, I can kind of do it while I'm training. But in that first year,
mhm,
it sort of solidified in my head that that was not where my heart was.
yeah, that's so important. And I love also that you are another example of not just this athletic excellence, but the fact that athletes have so much to offer. And you were a scholar as well. I think it's really important for people to recognize. I was at a conversation with the athletic director for Stanford, and there was a question from the audience that was basically questioning the value of money being put into the athletic departments and the scholarships for the athletes, but what about the people that are going to be doctors and lawyers and such? Like, shouldn't they be getting them too? Which, of course, there are academic scholarships as well. But the point that I made after was, who said those are different people? A lot of times these are the same people that are going on to those things. So
Absolutely.
um, yeah, it's so important for people to see that example, that it's not just a one-off here and there, but there are a lot of athletes that, whether they initially recognize it or not, are going to go professional in something that's also a very academic field afterwards.
And sometimes people outside of your immediate family or yourself
Hmm.
don't believe that it is possible to excel in both areas.
Yeah.
Sure, I had a high school teacher
Mm.
tell me very clearly, you cannot excel in both of these areas, and you need to pick one. You're spending all this time doing all these sports, but you want to be over here in these gifted classes. Something's going to give, and you need to choose. Otherwise, you're going to fail in both. And I remember just looking
Mm.
at her like, okay, but I just feel in my head, I could swear I feel like I could do both.
Hmm.
Sometimes you have to have, it's two things, your own self-belief, first of all, but coming from the kind of family that I did that felt that you could do both was very helpful. Because if I had had parents that or community that was also sort of like, no, you can't do both, you got to be a jock or you got to be a student, I
Yeah.
might have bought into that. But
Hmm.
thankfully I did not have to. I did not have to deal with that outside of that teacher telling me that.
Yes. Which was more testament to her sense of inadequacy and not having that ability, right? Clearly than yours. But I digress.
Yeah.
So, but something else that brings up is just the resilience that it takes. I mean, 5 consecutive Olympic Games, that's amazing by anyone's standard. Um, what do you feel like enabled you to do that? I mean, mental resilience, I'm sure is part of it. And I'd love to hear more about, like, if there are any specific ways that you maintain that. But I mean, it's a long, successful career. So you can tell me about that.
Um, for me, the longevity and resilience that I was able to have was based in a lot of my approach to pretty much everything I do. I'm a very process oriented kind of person.
Mm,
Even though I have big goals and dreams and see this great outcome at the end, I get very engaged in the process. So if you're a long jumper and you want to jump 23 feet, that sounds great. But how do you do that, right?
yeah.
And if someone's not long jumper, for the components of jumping far are speed, power, um, your agility, your strength.
Mm-hmm.
And so I put time and effort into each little component day in and day out. And it's actually great because that's the way track is set up, that you
Yeah.
train in cycles, you try to improve in all these little areas in your plyometrics, in your speed endurance, weightlifting, diet, sleep, like all these things, all these parts of the puzzle come together to see what
Mm-hmm.
people see when they watch an Olympics. It's not just a person out there just pumping their arms fast and trying hard. So,
Contrary to many people's
contrary
belief.
to popular belief,
Right.
there's a lot that goes into it.
Yes.
So when I could see these incremental improvements, like, oh my gosh, my bench press just went up by 2.5 pounds, or my power clean just went up by 5 pounds. I know how directly that's a direct line to what I
Mm-hmm.
could produce in a jump.
Mm-hmm.
So it helped me stay motivated because motivation is huge. If you don't have that, it's very hard to grind
Absolutely.
when it's raining outside or you're sick or you just can't be bothered or whatever, the many of reasons we could come up with to not go to practice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I fully engulfed myself in those things, and I just always thought I could be better because especially
Mm-hmm.
in a technical event like long jumping, it's never perfect. And I can still think now, I'm like, man, if I could just got my hips forward, I would have jumped. That's what kept me going, and the belief
Yeah.
it could be greater. And because track is so quantifiable, you don't have to wonder if you're better because it's right there on the
You'll see
page.
it.
Yeah, no one has to tell you. I don't need a coach to say that I've improved based on their opinion of whether I have improved. It tells me right here that
Mm-hmm.
I did. And fortunately, I was blessed to not get injured very often because that's another thing that derails people. I I I don't know. I used to say my body's made out of rocks. I don't know because I
Yeah.
just didn't get hurt that much. A few times here and there, but for the most part, I stayed healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed motivated. I could sustain myself financially.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those things played into my capacity to endure a long career. And I would suggest to anyone that's trying to do anything for a super long time
Mm-hmm.
to engage yourself in the process of how you accomplish this great goal, as opposed to just looking at the end and getting all depressed and sad if you don't see it happening right away, because you might see other little signs that you're improving that'll
Yes.
help you engage.
Yeah. Celebrating the small steps
Mm-hmm.
is absolutely important for keeping up morale, especially like you said, when you can't, like, you know the end, but you don't know how you're going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
If you know the process, at least the process of the next step that's in front of you. You
Yep.
might not know all the steps, but you can just get to that step and then take the little steps and you'll get there in time. But
Mm-hmm.
something else that it makes me also think about is just the different way of looking at being a student of a sport. A lot of people think being a student of a sport is like knowing the history, everybody who came before, what they did, studying all your other component your opponents and rivals and figuring out like how to outdo that. But I've never been that way,
Mm-hmm.
which was a frustration to some coaches. But I think that focusing on yourself, it just makes more sense. It made more sense to me, and I love how you were a student of the sport, but in a different way. You're like, what
Mm-hmm.
do I need to do? What do I need to technically fix to get to this goal? What is actually causing the problem? And then making those adjustments. So I think that that's important for people to recognize, one, that that's something they can do, especially if they happen to be a process oriented person like yourself. But also know that there's a different way to study something. And when you're passionate about it, like you said, you have the interest in the heart, it doesn't even feel like it's work to do
Right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Because that's where a lot of people along the way, they lose that motivation for that daily consistency, which is what
mhm,
is required to be great at anything for a sustained period of time.
yes.
You have to find things that keep you seeing that improvement or opportunities to find other ways to find success. And
Yes.
I know one of the things that helped me become more of a student of the sport was when I decided like 6 or so years after I had graduated to get a master's in sports psychology, because
Mm-hmm.
that's when sort of people were becoming more and more aware of how important that aspect was. And I thought, even if I don't help anyone else, I could probably help myself if I understand better what is going on, because I used to get really nervous and
Mm-hmm.
get all caught up in who's where, and at the Olympics and the World Championships, the things that separate the people at the top from the people that are not at the top often happens right in between here, and you see it happening all the time. And so the year I actually had my best result, which was in Sydney 2000, was the one year that I was injured.
Mm.
Not the one year, but one of the years where I had a
Yeah.
significant injury. Actually at Stanford, my first outdoor meet that year, I was doing the Stanford Invitational, and I had already long jumped, had a solid, I think I had jumped pretty well. And then I was like, oh, I'll just do triple jump, which I didn't train for. Triple jump was, even though I was All-American in that and had the Bahamian record and Stanford record, it was nothing, I'd never trained for it. I
Mm-hmm.
would do it once a year just for something to do. And on like the second jump I took, I just heard these three cracks. And I thought I had broken my shin.
Oh,
I thought
wow.
I was in it because bunch of noise and drama in the pit. And
Yeah.
someone grabbed my leg. And I thought when I moved my hand, I was going to see my bones.
Sticking out.
And then I remember moving my hand. I'm looking like, oh, leg and shin is fine. And then I went to stand up, and it was my knee that
Oh,
had come out of the joint. Doesn't feel good. Doesn't
no.
sound good either. Anyway, for
Wow.
10 days, that thing was like that. And I had to fly back to Texas where I was training. And long
Oh,
story
wow.
short, I finally got someone to help me manipulate it and put it back in. But this was now April, and I had not qualified for the Olympics yet.
Mm.
So, stubborn athlete, I'm like, oh, I'm fine. I can go ahead and compete the following week after my knee got put back in place, which I
Wow.
did. And
You competed on that.
I jumped 21.7, and the qualifying mark was 21.10 at the time to make to the Olympics. I was like, cool, I'm gonna get it. I'm good. My knee blew up
I'm sure it did.
so badly, swelling, just the worst. It was a bad idea. Shouldn't
Mm,
have done that.
yeah.
But it put me back weeks where I couldn't compete, and time was ticking, time was ticking.
Mm-hmm.
And it came to the very last meet that I could qualify in,
Mm-hmm.
last jump that I had already done my 5 jumps. I had one more jump, but I had been doing immense amounts of visualization because I had learned how to while I was doing this degree, which I had never done before. But
Mm-hmm.
I was doing that, like I was like, I have nothing else. I've spent all this time picturing these jumps in my head. And I had every jump 21.3, 21.6, 21.9, 21. One jump left, child, and then you go home, and you will not be going to the Sydney Olympics. And on that last jump, I stood there and required myself to
You
do this
required it.
jump.
Uh-huh.
I jumped 21.10 on the dot. And because they knew I was trying to do that, to qualify,
Yeah.
everyone was concerned that it was going to look like they were giving me the jump.
Mm-hmm.
So they pulled out the steel tape. They had it double measured,
Yes.
the wind reading, all this other stuff. And sure enough, I qualified and ended up being that was my best games. I finished 6th in Sydney.
Wow.
But that all came back to the fact that I had implemented the skill set of how to do visualization when I couldn't train.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For me, that was one of my greatest memories of my life, that I could require this from myself, and myself was like, okay, like I still get a little something. Sure.
Thinking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, I love that you said you required it. You didn't ask, you required
Yeah.
it.
I was just
This is
like,
going to happen. This
this
is the
is
last
gonna
chance. This
take
is it.
place.
Yes. So we're just doing this.
Yeah.
Somehow we're doing this. And it takes courage to do that, and I think a lot of people could get caught up in their head and feeling anxious about, well, what if it doesn't happen? You don't have time for that
No,
competing. You
I
just
got
don't
60
have time.
seconds from when my name comes up. to get it
Mhm.
together.
Yes. And I also love how you talked about the skills that you learned from doing your sports psychology work for your master's and how you applied that.
Hmm.
Visualization is such a powerful tool, and people don't realize enough how much that can actually help you, even in place of sometimes when you don't have the ability to
Yes,
physically train.
absolutely.
It's still training your mind and your muscle and your body to work together to make this happen.
Hmm.
So that's so important. When we were talking earlier about the being a student of the sport and the processes that you think about when you were training or that you thought about, one thing I think is important for people to realize too is that if your mind doesn't work like that, because not everybody is cerebral in that way. Part of what's important is finding the people to help you that do know these things and that are that way, because they can help you through that process and guide you through the steps, even if you don't know how to do it yourself. So I think that who we select as our support when you're training is also
Hmm.
very important.
Absolutely.
When you think about when you were here, training, whether it's California or your time in Texas, how important was your support network, and how did you build that with your? I don't know if your family was still um, back in the Bahamas at that time. So how did you build or find create that support network for you when you were training?
Yeah, I never was able to have a lot of family support because, I think my parents might have already, they had moved to the US, but they
Mhm.
moved to the Bay Area thinking I was going to stay in the Stanford area, and then I left. So, but they were the only people in my family
Yeah.
that were living here. And actually, no, my brother was in medical school, so I didn't really see him either.
Mhm.
Um, for me, I gained a lot of support from my training group. Wherever I was, whatever training group I was in, I am a fairly easygoing personality,
Mhm.
so I can just sort of get along with pretty much anyone. My husband's always trying to get me stop talking to people. It's like, um,
Hi, Ross.
so I would find support and comfort and community and conversation. We would go eat, hang out, because they're like-minded, similar
Yeah.
goals, similar levels of ability. And so it's very easy if you don't have to explain to someone why you can't go hanging out on the weekend because Monday's running workout is going to be extremely difficult. So I can't be out here in these streets with you
Mhm.
as I have other things to do,
Yes.
and why we need to stay inside, and how exhausted we are after lifting these weights, and how hot it is outside, and all of the things that we whine and complain about, but to each other, it's a great support system. So for me, that's where I leaned. I also leaned on my coaches for
Mhm.
their expertise and advice. I was very good at accepting critique, n- uh,
Mm.
constructive criticism. If you cannot accept that, it's going to be very difficult to be good at sports or pretty much anything else, because you
Anything.
have to be able to hear what you're not doing right and in order to
Mhm.
make it right.
People
S-
have to be coachable.
Absolutely. It's
Yes.
the biggest setbacks now, I think, with so many kids now who are so full of themselves. You cannot correct them. You cannot tell them something needs to be improved. A, they take it personally, and B, they don't think you know what you're talking about. So it's almost like, well,
Hmm.
why are you here? Because I coached high school for 7 years.
Yeah.
It would be amazing to me how many of these kids and the parents
Hmm.
would be just like, oh, we think she should get a private coach. I'm like, what do you think a private coach is going to tell this child about jumping that I cannot convey? Like,
Yes.
you just want to spend money. Okay.
Right.
But a lot of times it came from the parents, but if you hear it enough from your parent, you take that on and
Hmm.
feel that you don't want to hear what anyone has to say, and it's a recipe for failure if you're
Yeah.
not willing to hear, accept, and acknowledge that everybody needs help.
Yeah.
Nobody knows everything.
Yes. Yes. What Thinking about that when you if you were to be giving advice to mental health professionals, because there's already, even though from then people were getting more into the idea of the sports performance side of getting help from someone. But there's still a stigma that's kind of associated with taking advice. And like you said, people feel, especially if they're in a small pond or just doing well wherever they are,
Mhm.
and they haven't yet been in a situation where they've either underperformed or had to perform with people who were more advanced than they were. So, what tips, maybe from your coaching time, or even just your experience, do you have for mental health professionals that are working with athletes, but to get them to really be coachable in that way? And I hesitate to say coachable because one thing that's important to clarify, because I know it's a concern for coaches, is that the mental health person is going to get in there and start messing with their coaching and their training. So I want to be clear that is not the role of the mental health professional at all. A lot of times we're working with athletes that that's not our sport or what we did, so that's not our position. But just to get people to listen similar to the ways that coaches do? Is there something that you feel like is helpful when working with athletes in particular?
I think a couple things. One, because my husband is a sports psychologist, I hear all the time because he works with every level of professional athlete to high school and everything in between, how sometimes, even though in this day and age, most people know sort of what sports psychology is, they still
Hmm.
give that negative connotation to the term.
Yeah,
So sometimes in certain environments that you change the phrasing of what you're calling yourself, a performance coach or a something along those lines, because
yeah,
it it goes across a little easier.
yeah.
People don't take it so like something's wrong with you, I'm crazy, or that you're trying to tell me I'm crazy when clearly
Hmm.
that's not it.
Right.
So that's one thing. But another thing is would be in my mind would be to ask the athlete questions, such as like, do you have issues with concentration? Do you get nervous? Do you lose your focus? Have you ever pictured yourself doing your sport? Do you get anxiety? Are questions that will help them appreciate where you are coming from, as opposed
Mm.
to, I'm trying to tell you how to dribble this ball or knee drive or whatever, some
Yeah,
technical aspect.
right.
Have them appreciate from the onset what it is that you're about. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to answer yes to some of these questions.
Hmm.
And if you can share with someone like a scenario of how working with breathing or visualization or concentration, whatever it is, can impact a certain thing in their sport, whether the therapist has played that sport or not, like you said, everyone
Hmm.
can generate a scenario
Yeah.
where that mental skill would be useful.
Hmm.
Sometimes people need to hear it in that way to understand and appreciate how it is that it can be helpful, and how in critical moments, oftentimes you have to have that skill ready to go and know what to do in that moment, because you don't get 10 minutes to go over there and figure out what tool shall I
What to
pull out
do?
of
Right.
it. It has to sort of already be taught. You have to know what to use when and where, and everything doesn't suit every situation.
Hmm.
And if they can explain situations where they've had trouble and might think that they need help without you telling them, you need help here, you need help here, ask the question
Yeah,
and go from there. Because
I
I
like
think it's
that.
better to, it might be received better.
Yeah. I think one thing that comes from doing it that way, from having that approach, is clarifying that you're here to help them with their goals as opposed to imposing your own agenda.
Right.
There's a lot of mistrust in well, in healthcare, of course, but
Hmm.
also when we think about mental health and the way that some providers get affiliated with teams has an effect. Even not just mental health, even other medical providers. If it's a
Hmm.
someone from a company or a university that just happens to have a contract with the group, that's going to feel different to the athletes than someone who they found on their own or was
Hmm.
recommended by somebody else that they know. And
Right.
building that trust is important for them to listen and
Very
take the step
tricky.
in.
It's a
Yes,
fine,
it
uh,
is.
I've
It
seen and heard.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's a great point.
Yeah.
How did you pivot when you're thinking about your transition out of sport? How did you navigate the change of identity? And is there anything that you took? I'm sure there's a lot of things. I shouldn't even say is there anything, but what things do you feel like came from all those years of being the athlete that you were and the journey to that point? What of those things helped, or did you use maybe even intentionally as you transitioned after sport?
Um, so I was planning to retire in 2010. That was what I had in my head the whole time. I was already 38,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, okay, I'll do one more World Championships, one more Commonwealth Games, and then be done. And then in 2009, I tore my Achilles.
Mm,
So while I was preparing to retire, I wasn't quite there. So it happened a little sooner than I had planned, and it was a bit of a shock to the system. And not so much physically, right? Because it wasn't even that painful to me. I have a high pain tolerance.
apparently,
Um,
Achilles tendon.
But it was more of like, uh-oh, what am I going to do now? Because even though I had the master's degree and I wasn't gonna be a sports psychologist, I sort of figured that out, but I didn't know what I was going to do. So
Mhm,
there was this period of time where I was like unable to really move around based on the injury. So I was trying to use that time to try and figure out what the heck is it that I'm going to do when I'm done. A lot of people go into coaching. As a
mhm,
collegiate coach, it's an easy transition. If you know the right people or have had enough experience, it's a fairly, I don't want to say simple, but it's
mhm.
doable.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure if I wanted to do that or stay in still be so heavily involved in track because I had done that my whole life from I was 11. And I thought I should do something different. I just didn't know what different was. And I ended up coaching high school for a few years. I was a personal trainer for a few years, mostly because it gave me the flexibility and time I could make a decent living at that here in LA,
Mhm,
but it also gave me some time while I was making a decent income to sort of navigate my way through what is it that I'm going to do, because track was so fulfilling. It filled me up in every single way. What is it that I'm going to do? And I'm only 38. I know people call
mhm.
that old now, but
No, that's not
I
old.
was not thinking of it as old. I was thinking, I am so young and I don't know what else it is that I'm going to do.
Mhm,
So it actually took a minute. I did very basic stuff like, this sounds silly. Go on Indeed.com and look at job descriptions
to
because,
figure out what you wanted to do?
yeah, I
Okay.
was that out of, like, I knew I wasn't trying to be a science teacher. I knew I'm not a science person. Don't want
Mhm,
to know, not computers. No,
mhm,
I'm more of an artsy, creative, organized. I knew I started making lists of things that I knew were my strengths and interests.
mm,
And then I went on Indeed every day looking at job descriptions, like, what do these people do? Because I didn't even know some of these job titles, what that meant.
mhm,
Which sounds silly. You're like, you're a Stanford grad, you don't know what a job is? I'm like, no, I did not. I was stuck in this very narrow horse race for all these years that some of the
mhm,
stuff that should have just been sense of, like, you should automatically just know that, I did not know. I had not had a social life very much. So I was like,
mhm.
oh, I guess I should go on a date. Um, it was all that piecing
Yeah,
together things that I liked and figuring out what that was and trying to be
yeah.
patient with myself because it was a little frustrating that I didn't know.
Mhm,
Um, but over time, it came to me like from doing this exercise and going to the bookstore and reading like what it is that people are out here doing,
mhm,
sort of started to itemize my strengths, which were super organized. I like lists. I like creating beautiful spaces. I am a very responsible doer. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
doer. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
a talker of things. I'm like, tell me what to do. I got it.
Mm-hmm.
So that path sort of helped me direct my efforts towards becoming an event coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
It also helped me to launch a couple businesses that had my interest, and one of them I still do. I own a home staging business, which I launched during COVID because it fulfills all of those things that I just said are my strengths. And during
Mm-hmm.
COVID, when there were no events, I needed something to do outside of being a stay-at-home teacher for my kids.
Yes.
And home staging sort of came up as a thing that I could do without a lot of interaction with people. So I
Mm-hmm.
could stay healthy, but I could still fulfill all this. It's extremely gratifying to me to create a beautiful home or whatever it is. So
And I must say, you do create very beautiful spaces.
well, I thank you.
Yes. Yes.
I took a course, paid $1,000. I thought it might have been a little too much to pay for the course, but that course was amazing.
Yeah.
Taught me the business side because I knew how to do, I could make a room look good, but I knew nothing about the business. I didn't know any realtors other than my
Mm-hmm.
own. So I needed that direction. And I just started with no inventory, just absolutely nothing other than the fact that I felt like I could do it. And I've now done almost 150 homes, and
Mm-hmm.
just something that I enjoy immensely. I say that my job is my job and staging is like my joy, because when I'm in there, I'm just like playing some music and making
Yeah.
sure that the end product is great. I will say that the
Mm-hmm.
thing that has served me the greatest from when I was an athlete to now,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something that I cherish, is I am not afraid of failure. I'm not. I'm afraid of all kinds of things, heights, small spaces. I don't really like flying that much anymore, but I'm not afraid of flying, but I'm not that big of a fan.
Okay.
I'm afraid of all kinds of things, bugs, but failure is not one.
Not one of
I
them.
don't
I
care
like that.
if someone, what someone thinks about my efforts.
Yeah.
I know that if I want
Mm.
something, then I have to try. And I'm not the person to look back and be like, what would have happened if I tried this or if I put the time in? I'm not doing that. I'm going to put the time in if it's something I want to accomplish, because on the other side of that is success. And if it's not, it will not be because I did not do my due diligence and put my effort in. And that
Absolutely.
is something, if you want to be excellent at anything, you have to be able to put everything into something and be okay if it doesn't work out, because there's no guarantee
Absolutely.
that it's going to work out. But you
Mm-hmm.
can't go every day and like, what if it doesn't work out? What if it doesn't work out? Then you'll never know. You have to
Yes.
keep the intention and the mindset that it is going to work out. And that
Mm-hmm.
is how I move through the world. So,
That's
if
awesome.
down the road, the staging, something happens, hey, I had a good run. I enjoyed myself. I was successful at it for a period of time, and then this season is over. And what else is there to do?
I love there's I don't know if you realize this, and I love how it happens completely organically, but you have like three themes. The last one, it was only explicitly stated now, but it's still running throughout. But three themes to like your path. First of all is your self-belief. Like you said something earlier about the belief that you could be great. That's key to being successful. Then being able to create the process and trusting the process.
Mm-hmm.
When you talked about, I think it's brilliant what you did with Indeed and how you gave yourself the permission to take the time to figure it out. I'm sure it felt uncomfortable at the time, but still you're like, this is a part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the process is uncomfortable, but I still need to do this to figure out what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing you said about no fear of failure, I know I've said it before, but when I was on a different path and headed towards orthopedics, one of the the role models that I had that also helped with some mentorship. Something he said to a group of us really stuck out and stuck with me, and this is decades later. But Dr. Cato T. Lorenzen, from UVA, he said, "Personal fear, get over it. It'll only hold you back." And that's true. And clearly, I am not an orthopedic surgeon right now. I'm a psychiatrist. So, you have to you go for things. It doesn't matter if you change course.
Hmm.
There's so many different ways to be successful,
Yeah,
and you have to be willing to what you're led to do, you try that. And if at
yep,
some point in time you feel like it needs to be something else, then you try that. And you give
yep.
yourself the compassion and the time to figure it out and either come up with a process on your own, or if you're not oriented that way, find somebody who is and let them
Yep.
help you. Like that's how
And
you
not worry about
keep
what
being success
everybody
what everybody thinks.
else is
That's
saying,
another
because
thing.
that holds so many people back. Kids
It
growing up with
does.
social media, like, oh,
Yes.
if they say this, or what if they don't think this, and what if you're going to do a fifth Olympic still? You still compete? Why, yes, I am.
Right.
Thank you.
Why
I
are you worried about
appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate the concern.
it?
And it's not done in this way where you're like cocky, because I'm not a
Mhm.
cocky person at all.
Not at
I'm
all.
just confident in my effort, in my work. I'm confident
Mhm.
in that part. I'm confident on the front end.
Yeah.
And that's how you get confidence, is by doing all this work. So that when you get to try the thing, that's why I took the course for the home staging. Yeah,
Right.
I could do a room, but if you only know how to do a room, but you don't have any clients, who are you doing the room for?
Mhm.
So I knew I had to learn that part. And then once I took that course, going from having zero confidence in my ability to launch, I had full confidence after that because it was so thorough. I was like, okay,
Mhm.
I can do that. And I got this blueprint. Let me follow this
Right.
plan. And it was the same similar sort of mentality for track the whole time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I think that all of that is really going to help someone, a lot of people, forget someone, like a lot
Mhm.
of people, just hearing that and knowing that's what it takes, but knowing that they can do it because you've broken it down into steps that are applicable to everything, everything.
Right.
It's
Right.
not about sport, it's not about professional career necessarily, just everything that you're trying to do. If you can do these
Hmm.
things and still listen to yourself, you can be successful,
Yep.
you know? So this is your what's good with Dr. Wilson moment. So if you have any projects that are going on, anything you want to tell people about, or if you want people to reach out somehow, how they can do that, tell me what's up.
Okay. I am actively looking to buy a business. I
Mm,
would like to, my husband and I talk about all these great dreams in life when we retire and the kids are out of the house and all this other stuff. To do all these great things, you need income. And
mm,
what we're doing pretty well right now, there is nothing to be lost for having an additional stream of income. So
mm-hmm,
last year I did some extra work for a company and I saved the money. I did not just spend the money because I had the money. I saved it all or most of it.
mm-hmm,
So I want to buy a business that I have some interest in. I mean, I have certain parameters around what it could or could not be. It's not written in stone,
mm-hmm.
but something more absentee owned than like me being there daily, because I'm trying to find something where it can produce income without me giving time every day. Because
Yes.
now in my regular life, it's time for money.
Mm-hmm,
I want something that sort of is an established business
mm-hmm.
that can sustain income from now till whenever. Either
Never.
sell it or
You
just
want to
keep.
tell us about, do you know yet, like what type of business you're looking for? Because I'd love to share that.
I've been looking at all, haven't found, in fact, I was looking at the books of one company today. The one I'm looking at today is a sports massage business.
Mm,
Makes perfect sense. I can
mm-hmm,
appreciate what they do in there. The books look good. I don't know
mm-hmm.
everything I'm looking at on these books. So I can see like top, I see the bottom, some of this stuff in the middle, I'm
Get
not
a forensic a forensic accountant. Make sure everything is
yeah.
right and correct. Yes.
So once I sort of look at it,
Yeah.
then we will pass it along. It's a joint venture with my husband, and
Yeah.
I just it interests me.
Yeah.
I would love to hear someone tell me what all these numbers are,
Uh-huh.
and then see if it's sort of a viable option. We've seen a couple things here and there. I saw a catering business recently, but it had too much going on. Like it was fairly
Mhm.
successful, but it had a lot of moving parts, and that's not really what I was trying to
Understood.
accomplish, even though the money looked right. The
Hmm.
opportunity was not right because it would require too much legwork. So
Okay.
yeah, it just depends. It could be a laundromat. It could be uh sports therapy. It could be, I don't know.
Anything. So if someone wanted to send you a proposition or reach out to see if you're interested in talking to them, how would they do that? What do you recommend they do?
So I am always available by email. My email address is very corny and it has been here for years.
I
So
like it personally, but go
probably
ahead.
too old to be still using email. It's Olygirl5X, Olygirl, the number 5 and the letter X at gmail.com. So
Perfect.
anything on an email, my home staging business is Gold Medal HSD for home staging and design. That's on
Ooh,
Instagram. That's the same as the website and same as the email, Gold Medal HSD at Gmail.
awesome.
That's pretty much it. And Facebook. That I'm old school. I got Facebook.
I
I don't
mean,
really
maybe
do
one
all
day.
that other
Maybe I'm old school too.
and keep up with that. I don't have enough things to
That's
impose it
okay.
every day. Like, I don't have all.
That's all good. Well, this
Yeah,
is awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time and for being here and sharing your stories and your wisdom, truly, with me.
thank you, Wilsa. I
You're
appreciate it.
welcome. Awesome.